Hello beautiful, welcome back to my channel. My name is Bettina and I'm the makeup enthusiast. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you my finale on my Pan That palette. I wanted to wrap this one up a little bit earlier than I anticipated, just so I could have some fun time playing in December with everything, all my other face palettes in my collection, and get an idea of what I wanted to select as my palette to pan in 2022. But I am calling on you guys to help a sister out and help me decide. So I'm going to give you my update, and then I'm going to run through the palettes that I have in the contender category, and you guys can let me know down in the comments which one you would like me to pan, or which combination of the ones you would like me to pan down in the comments, and I will take that into consideration when I am planning for next year. And before we get into the update, if you are new around here, I would love it if you would consider subscribing down below if you do want to keep up to date on all my project panning content and all my other beauty content that I release on this channel. And without further ado, let's jump on in to the update. So I am currently panning my Too Faced Love Flush Blush Wardrobe. I worked on this palette for the entirety of 2020 and I managed to completely use up 3 blushes in this palette. I returned to this palette, I think 2 or 3 months ago. I can't quite remember. You'll have to go back into the updates to see when exactly I rolled this one in. I set myself the goal at the start of the year to hit pan on the last 3 shades in this palette. That was like one of my yearly goals that I wanted to achieve on this palette. I decided very early on in the year that I just wasn't quite ready to commit another year to this palette. So I put this one to the side and I focused on a different blush palette for the majority of this year. Once I reached my limit on that palette, I returned to this one to try and hit pan on the last 3 shades before the end of the year. Now that hasn't happened, but I have already hit pan on one of the shades in this palette, and that is the I Will Always Love You. And then when I hit pan on that, I decided to move on to the color How Deep Is Your Love, and I have actually hit pan on that one as well. You can see the pan just there in the middle, and there are like a few other tiny little specks of pan like around the bigger pan that I have here. So I think, you know, if I use this maybe for another week or so, I probably could have made the pan a lot bigger. But I'm just at the point where I'm just a little bit over this palette. I'd like to have a little bit of a play around with some of the other blushes that I purchased earlier on this year. I just want to play with other stuff in my collection. There's other palettes that I haven't touched for a while, and my single blushes that I haven't touched for a while, so I would just like to enjoy playing with my blush collection for the rest of the year. So I have hit pan on another 2 shades in this palette. There is only 1 more shade left in this palette to hit pan on. I might maybe try and do that at some point in 2022. I might roll it into some form of project. I'm not quite sure. I would eventually like to completely finish off this palette because it is like really obnoxiously long and it sticks out like a sore thumb in my collection. I don't love having this in my collection. So I do eventually want to get this one completely done. It's just, it takes these blushes are so pigmented, so it takes forever to get through them. So when I think about going back to this palette, I just kind of cringe because I know how long it's going to take me to finish off those last ones. But we'll probably see it at some point again in 2022, whether it's that I set my goal on completely using up one of the ones that I've already panned, or whether it's just panning that last one. Haven't really decided. That's my finale on my Love Flush Blush wardrobe for this year. I managed to get 2 of the 3 pans done. Well, I managed to hit pan on 2 of the 3 last shades in there, so I think that's fairly successful. For my Pan That palette for 2022, I have grabbed out some contenders. There is a bit of a mix in here. I have some palettes that are like full face palettes. I've got some that are just purely blush. I've got some that are just purely like contour. So you guys can let me know which one you think that I should try and pan next year, or which one you would like to see me try and pan next year. So let's go through the contenders. We'll start with this one because you guys have seen this one already this year. So this is my Tarte color wheel. I was working on this for most of this year. I think probably from about January to August, maybe October. I managed to pan on 4 of the shades in this palette. There are still 6 pans, so there's 4 blushes and 2 highlights that I haven't hit pan on. So these 3 up here, there's 1 here, and the 2 highlights that I haven't hit pan on yet. So this is definitely a contender. I don't know whether I really want to go back to this just yet, but if you guys would like me to attempt to hit pan on every shade in this palette by the end of next year, I'm definitely up for the challenge if that's something you want to see. So that's the first contender, but bear in mind I already spent a large amount of time on this one earlier this year. So if you want to see something brand new in this project, then maybe we might go for one of the other ones. I do also have another Tarte palette. This is the Tarte Off the Cuff palette. This is the Christmas palette from, I think it's like 6 years ago. I do have 1 pan in this palette. That's the blush in the middle here. The other ones have minimal usage on them. There is actually a bronzer here, which almost has the imprint worn off. The rest, you know, some of them have more of the imprint worn off than others. So this is definitely a contender. I would be using a bronzer and 3 blushes in here. I do really like this palette. I think it's a great one. Then moving on, I also have my Anastasia Beverly Hills contour kit. Now, if you guys want to see this one, I think this is definitely one I'm going to have to franken before we even consider this as a possibility. So I do want to franken this, whether I include it in the palette, pan that palette or not. I definitely want to franken it. I want to film my products that I've hit pan on in 2021 video before I go ahead and franken this palette though. So what I'm considering in terms of frankening it, I want to crush both of these up and mix them together, press them into 1 pan. I think if I press them into 1 pan, that's going to leave me 1 pan empty essentially. Then I want to mix the highlighter into, probably do maybe like half, maybe a quarter, just depending on how it works, of the highlighter mixed in with these bronzers, in the hope to try and make them a little bit more wearable for me and a little bit easier to work on my really pale skin. So I think that's going to be my plan. I might have to maybe dig out some face powder or something to mix with them. And then I think if I repress them, I might repress them a little bit more loosely. So hopefully that way the formula is a little bit easier to work with. It's not so densely packed in there and whatnot. So if you would like to see this palette, I will have to franken it first. And also let me know if me frankening this palette is something you would like to see in a video. Last but not least are, I guess, full face palettes. The first is my Hourglass Ambient Lighting Edit palette. This is the sculpt version. This was last year's Christmas palette. I have not used this one all that much. In this palette, there is finishing powders. There's a strobe powder. So we've got dim light, diffused light, we've got glistening strobe light, then we have a bronzer, there's a blush in, this is the strobe blush in Vibrant Flush and the blush in Mood Exposure. I actually really like the Mood Exposure blush. I have Mood Exposure in the trio and it's like getting quite flat. So this is also definitely a serious contender. I would probably be aiming to at least hit pan on most of these, if not use them up. I think I could like easily probably use up the blush quite quickly. Probably dim light as well. I think it's dim light. Yeah, I think I used up dim light previously in another palette, basically as like a bronzer / like bronzer topper. So that's also a contender. And the last one, which I think might be a little bit of a challenge, but I'm definitely down to give it a try, is the Charlotte Tilbury Instant Look of Love in a palette. This is in Glowing Beauty. So this is actually like, it's literally a full face palette. So in this palette, there's 3 eyeshadows, there's a face powder, there's a bronzer, a highlighter, and a cheek product. So I would be trying to probably use up the face powder and the bronzer, and then the rest I would probably just be trying to at least hit pan on. So this one would definitely, I mean, it probably would get a big workout in terms of like products that I would use for work. But I think that this is I love the design of this palette, and it's definitely something that I would consider purchasing like future editions of. So just, I don't want to have like lots of double ups of essentially like the same kind of thing. So that's why I have picked this one out as a contender. So let me know down in the comments box which one you would prefer to see. I know there's a lot of options, but you know, I would be happy to pan like 2 of these, put 2 of these in a project. So even if you would like to see the Tarte again and maybe the ABH contour kit, vice versa, let me know your 2 most preferred palettes that you would like me to pan in this project in 2022. I would love to hear your opinion, because I think it'll be fun, you guys picking the challenge for the next year. I do want to get you guys involved in a little bit more of my channel next year. I think it'd be really fun if you guys like contribute to different things that you would like me to pan and stuff like that in the new year. Well, that's my finale on this one, and let me know down in the comments which palette you would like me to pan into, or which 2 palettes you would like me to pan in 2022. While you are down there in the comments, make sure you give this video a big thumbs up if you did enjoy it, and I would also love it if you would consider subscribing. That way you can keep up to date on this project, all my other project panning endeavors that I punish myself with, and all my other beauty content that I have on this channel. That's it for this video, beautiful. I hope that you're having an absolutely fantastic day. I do hope that you are staying safe and healthy and looking after yourself, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye, beautiful.